Hello, in this video I will share the results of my staunch anti-smokers 1-week smoking experiment. Still haven't entirely got the hang of it, but I have improved. Well, let's face it, I couldn't have got much worse, could I? So it's been an interesting week and an absolutely fascinating experiment for someone who up until last week had never even had a puff on a cigarette because I absolutely could not stand the smell of smoke. But curiosity had got the better of me when I kept hearing about the surprising health benefits of nicotine.
What is nicotine known to medical science to be a preventative nutrient of and a treatment for to help cure and reduce symptoms of? The first one are all neurodegenerative diseases. Parkinson's disease can be prevented and can be cured and its symptoms reversed with nicotine alone.
Firstly, thank you so much for all the tips and advice you gave me in the comments under my first video, which in just over a week was nearly 6,000 views last time I looked, which is pretty good for a brand new YouTube channel. So thank you so much. Hilariously, my awful attempts at smoking even made it onto a pipe smoking channel.
Her name is Rachel Matthews. And I want you to watch. I don't want to tell you too much about it. I want you to watch this one video, and it's not too long. I want you to watch it all completely. Listen to what she has to say. Listen to the gentleman she's talking to and what he has to say.
So thank you, Smarty Bob, for sharing my video. And what an absolutely lovely and welcoming community pipe smokers are. It's opened up a whole new world for me. And as you can see, all your advice and tips has helped. And especially to Richard Vobes once again, who, after he'd finished chuckling after watching my first video, gave me some more tips. And the advice he gave was to breathe in through my nose while I'm drawing back. And that helped tremendously, especially with those people that suggested that I sip it like a fine wine. That's definitely helped me not draw it into my lungs quite so often as I did in that first attempt. So there were quite a lot of comments saying, "Don't inhale!" Yeah, no kidding. I was trying not to, but it's quite difficult when you've never smoked before, judging precisely where the smoke is. It's not like a liquid where you can feel precisely where it's gone. It's much more subtle than that. So I really have to concentrate to make sure that I don't take it into my lungs. And I haven't fully mastered that, but as you can see, I'm not coughing and spluttering to the degree I was in that first video. Oh my God. Do people actually do this for pleasure? Now, part of that might be the length of the shaft of the pipe, because Richard did say that's going to produce a much cooler smoke. So maybe with a shorter one, it's warm and you can feel precisely where it's gone. But anyway, my pipe smoking skills are still very much a work in progress. So the reason for the smoking experiment wasn't actually for me, it was for my elderly parents who there may be some health benefits for, and I wanted to test it on myself first. I wanted some first-hand experience of what nicotine does in the body. And although Dr. Brian Ardis does recommend nicotine patches, I wanted to try it in its natural, God-given form first before I move on to the nicotine. So that will be next week's experiment. I was curious, what's the difference between what you get naturally in tobacco versus the synthetic nicotine that's in the patches and pouches, etc. So, what happened once I got past my accidental inhalations and coughing fits? Well, the first very noticeable thing was my head felt so much clearer. With each day I did it, I could feel, it felt like someone had scrubbed inside of my head. It started moving back and it's got to about here now. That sludgy feeling has completely gone. I feel like I've been hoovered. So I definitely feel a greater sense of clarity Though I can't say that it's improved my memory any, although last week was a particularly busy week because we were going to the Shine seminars in Gloucester and then immediately after to the Wellness Weekend Festival. So I haven't had a great deal of sleep, so that has not helped my memory. Someone in the comments said that smoking really helped them with their attention deficit disorder and their memory, and they said it took 2 to 3 months to notice the improvements in memory. So it was unlikely to help me remember why I'm going from one room to the next in just a short week's experiment. So this being the internet, as you can imagine, there were a few folks that were up in arms over this experiment. And one person said a week of smoking would be enough for the nicotine to get its hooks into me. So to thoroughly test that, I've actually done it for longer than the 7 days I intended. I've done 9 days. And this week, after this one, I'm not going to do anything for an entire week and see if I get any cravings or any side effects whatsoever. And also, I want to test if the sludgy feeling comes back, or how long does the clarity last after I've stopped smoking. So I'm going to give it a week's break, and then next week I'm going to test the pouches that are completely synthetic. This is a little sack of baking soda, nicotine flavourings, and goodness knows what else. And thank you to the people that warned me just how nasty these things are. Yeah, I can see why. I thought I was buying 20 milligrams in the entire container. No. That's in each one, although there's 12 milligrams per pouch of nicotine. So that's the equivalent of smoking 12 cigarettes at once. So the person that said these made them puke violently for quite some time, yeah, I'm not surprised. So I won't be doing that. I think it will be a quick and then out again. I'm not even going to put the whole thing in because I don't know how quickly they release the 12 milligrams of nicotine. So I don't seem to need much. I've been smoking about a third of a pipe, my cut-off point. Feel it in my legs, bit tingly, and the pipe goes out. So that's what I've been doing nearly every day. I didn't quite manage on the Friday because we were going from one location to the other. And before we set off for the festival weekend, on the Wednesday night, I'd been so busy packing that I didn't actually get to smoke, didn't find the time till about 9:30 at night. And it woke my brain up so much I had trouble sleeping. I wasn't buzzing with it, but it just, I'm an overthinker. So it wasn't helpful to have a wide awake brain. So on the Friday, I thought, I don't want to be smoking at, 10 o'clock at night. So I thought, no, I'll forget Friday. I'll do it twice on the Saturday. So then I ended up doing something on top of the something I never thought I'd end up doing, and that was smoking first thing in the morning. It's always amazed me how people could even consider smoking first thing in the morning. So there I was at a Wellness Weekend Festival in a field full of vegans and health-conscious folks. I had a mug of hot steaming bone broth in one hand and a pipe in the other. You can imagine how well that went down. There's a lot of judgment with smoking, isn't there? Which I thoroughly deserve because I've been quite judgy in my life over smokers, especially first thing in the morning. So, karma. Anyway, what I noticed on the Saturday, and I don't know if this is because it was first thing in the morning and I hadn't really had anything to eat, or whether a day not smoking had made a difference, or my body had just got used to the tobacco. But after I smoked it, I just felt so incredibly mellow. I mean, just super chilled. Now, I've often heard people say that, oh no, it's not the nicotine, it's the taking proper breaths that makes one relaxed. No, it's not. I've never been that relaxed from just breathing. And, I've done like a 4 weeks pranayama breathwork retreat, and I never felt that mellow. So it's definitely whatever's in the tobacco, probably the nicotine. But I was just super chilled out. And the whole point of me going away for this weekend is I've been a big fan of Barbara O'Neill, and she was one of the lead speaker that day. So I'm up there with, just chilling out. And then I could hear it at the far end of the venue that it had started. Now, normally I'd have been, I'm missing it, pack up all my stuff and running down the hill to get to it. But no, I was so mellow. It was like, yeah, well, I'll just pack my stuff up and I'll just trundle down there. I'll get there eventually. There was just it's like, who are you and where's Rachel gone? So yeah, very, very mellowed. And then of course, I did it again early evening so that I'd kind of caught up with my dose. So yeah, 2 in one day. And yes, it just makes me ridiculously relaxed. So at least now I can understand why people smoke. It's always fascinated me, like, how could you do that? It's like, yeah, I get it now, finally. It's really quite nice. Now, the other thing that I've noticed, and probably because my control over precisely where the smoke goes hasn't been ideal, first thing in the morning, I was finding that my voice was really quite gravelly. And as someone who uses their voice for a living, I do voiceovers and audiobooks, I wasn't looking to extend my vocal range to really quite gravelly. I could have given Lilo Lil a run for her money if I was Irish. So that was a side effect that I don't particularly want. But that's, as I say, that's probably because I was drawing the smoke in further than I had actually intended. I also hadn't considered the gender stereotyping that goes along with pipe smoking. For me, it was just a logical, practical tool to get tobacco in and get the smoke from point A to point B. But yes, there was 1 or 2 interesting comments. Let's just say there's a few people on the internet that seem to be deeply unhappy and very insecure in themselves. But anyway, bless them. Thank you for your comments. But I like my pipe. I very, very much like it. I also very much like the tobacco. It smells delicious. The bit I'm not so keen on is the whole setting fire to it bit. I'm still not liking the taste of smoke, and several of you recommended that I try and pick up the taste through the smoke, and that has helped a bit, but it still feels like I'm swallowing a bonfire. And many of you have recommended other tobaccos and all sorts of stuff, but for me, this is sort of a medical experiment. I don't actually care if I enjoy it or not. I don't particularly enjoy a glass of water with a teaspoon of vitamin C powder in it. That tastes quite nasty as it goes down as well. So I'm not fussed whether I like it or not. What I'm interested in is, what's the minimum effective dose? How often do you have to smoke in order to get the clear head feeling? So what really got me interested in this was not Dr. Brian Ardis, it was an interview that David Avocado Wolf did on Crow 777 Radio. And he mentioned all of the health benefits that Dr. Ardis did, but also the sort of spiritual practices and meditation benefits of smoking a pipe. And he grows his own tobacco, and it was a whole thing over that. And I must admit, it is quite meditative when you watch the smoke as it sort of curls, and it's so fleeting, and there's something along with the mellowness that the smoking itself. So it is quite meditative. Yeah, it was very nice. It's just a shame I don't like the smoke part, but many of you said you get used to that part. But I'm also wondering, and several people have suggested it, about chewing tobacco. So this is probably a daft question, but can you actually chew pipe tobacco? I've seen on various websites chewing tobacco. What's the difference? Once my other experiments are finished, if this is chewable, I would probably try that. So many of you have asked, will I continue the pipe smoking? Well, maybe. It depends. I want to find out what the minimum effective dose is. If, to keep the clarity of mind, it's something I have to do like once, twice a month, sure, this is as good a means as any. Is it something I want to do? Not particularly, if I'm honest, though I do have an appreciation for it. I can understand now why people do it, and I can see why there's so much passion within the pipe smoking community. So anyway, my week experiment has certainly piqued my interest, but I want to understand it more. You often hear people say, oh yeah, our body's full of nicotine receptors. Well, not exactly. We've got nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, and my understanding at the moment, now I haven't researched it fully, my understanding is that the nicotine happens to fit in that receptor site. So I want to research a lot more, like, what is acetylcholine? Because it comes in different forms. I think I've seen it as a supplement, or certainly the precursors to it. So how important is the nicotine? What does that do versus what nicotinic acetylcholine does? Now, my mother, off her own bat, has been testing out, I think it's NAD. And also you have nicotinamide, a form of B3, and various iterations of that. There's NAD, there's NSM, I think it is. Anyway, there's various iterations. So does it actually need to be nicotine, or are there other ways of getting this effect that don't involve smoking? So I've got a lot of research that I'm now intrigued to do. I'm also very interested in peptides, which are short chain amino acids that have been artificially put together, but they do different things. So they will set off a cascade of healing within the body depending on what type. So if there are alternative ways of getting the same health benefits, then I would probably go down those routes. I always find there's a battle inside my head of, in my heart, I'm a purist with, getting like whole plant nutrients and benefits from whole plants and not popping pills and potions and stuff. But then the other half of me think, well, if it works, who cares? Pop the pill, whatever. Take the peptide injection, whatever you're doing. But it's always good, I think, to have the natural one to fall back on, because if anything ever happens to our supply chains, having that ability to grow stuff in your own garden that can be beneficial for your health when you can't get other things, I always think is a good idea. So I'm glad I've tried it in its most natural form that I could find. And I will continue growing tobacco, and I'm going to make sure I have seeds, because I can see there are healing benefits from it. But what I'm going to say next will probably alienate about 95% of the audience. So I'll give you a little bit of backstory so it kind of makes a bit more sense. So I've never been someone that's drunk tea or coffee. I don't tend to take painkillers, don't drink, smoke, well, knock smoking off the list, don't drink, don't do substances. And there's two reasons for that. One, I've never particularly liked them, but two, I had quite a severe health crash in my late teens, early 20s. I had chronic fatigue, ME, post-viral, whatever you want to call it, but it was pretty miserable, and it took me 5 years to get over that. And I was bedridden for 2 years, like just too weak to get up. And at that time, my grandmother was coming to the end of her life, and she was living with us, and it was very noticeable that my energy levels were similar to hers, my strength, again, similar to hers. So in many ways, I've already experienced what it's like to be old, and I never want to experience that ever again. Not in the way that most people age, i.e. weak, frail. I'm doing everything in my life to make sure I am fit, feisty, and bloody hard work when I'm old. I'm going to be a right pain. So when you have a dramatic health thing like that, it makes you very, very careful what you put in your body. So in many ways, I'm glad I had that experience back in my late teens, early 20s, because I've really looked after myself. And every year I try and get myself fitter and stronger than the year before. And pretty much every year I have managed that. Okay, there might be small changes, but fundamentally, I'm quite lazy. I don't really like exercising. I'm forcing myself to do it. Now I'm in my 50s, but it's not something I love doing. Now that I'm no longer living in Spain, where I was going on weekly mountain hikes in beautiful scenery, that kind of encourages you to get out the door. But we've got glorious weather at the moment, but with English weather, you're not really encouraged to do the level of outside exercise that, I did when I was abroad. So I'm forcing myself to do the exercise, but the easy, low-hanging fruit is what I consume. There's no junk food in my house, none. The dodgiest thing I've got is probably the nitrite-free bacon, but everything else, no chemicals, nothing. Because I can absolutely guarantee you there isn't any substance on earth that is worth wrecking your health for, except maybe cake and chocolate. No, stop it. No, not even that. So for me, it's easy to eat healthy food because that's all I've got in the house. There's no choice. Now, I do have the occasional pudding when I'm out and at Christmas, and when I'm away with the family on holiday, I eat whatever I want, but it's only for a few days. So doing that twice a year does not cause me any harm. The rest of the year, I'm as good as gold, more or less. But anyway, as I was away this weekend, I did have some chocolate in the car. And people saying nicotine was addictive, the only thought I would give to the smoking was, what time shall I do it with what time I'd got during all the events that were planned for the day. The chocolate bar in the car, however, I kept getting messages about the chocolate bar in the car throughout the day. There's a chocolate bar in the car, don't you? You could go and get that now. go and do my stuff. You know there's a chocolate bar in the car, don't you? Yes. So that was what was in my head all day, not, oh, can I have a smoke now? You know, all the people that warned me about the nicotine addictiveness, how much do you pay attention to your diet? How much sugar are you addicted to? Alcohol? How much coffee? So as someone who has a very neutral baseline, you know, I'm not doing the stimulant seesaw of coffee, sugar, tobacco, alcohol. I'm not doing any of that normally. This feels to me very powerful. This does not feel to me like an everyday substance I should be consuming, certainly in this form. And, you know, I'm not an expert on Native American Indian history, but I get the feeling they weren't wandering around all day with a pipe hanging out their mouth. They used tobacco carefully, consciously. So if I do continue with the pipe, it will be very conscious and very carefully. For me, this is definitely not an everyday occurrence. And, you know, no judgment on those of you that do and enjoy it. I can see why now. But I can also feel that that definitely isn't for me. We come from such an overabundant culture, a culture of excess. And, you know, because of the commercialism, people are pushed to be drinking coffee all day long, sugar all day long, alcohol. Everything's normalized. And although, you know, you could see the judgy looks when people saw me with this, up until, you know, not that long ago, smoking was part of the socially acceptable things one did. It's only recently been ostracized. But all of those things need to be done with care. And I can really attest to that after this weekend. So on the last day of the Wellness Festival, I attended a cacao ceremony, and proper cacao is noticeably strong. So that was what I did first thing in the morning. Then I attended a lecture on the benefits of adaptogens in coffee.
So you spike your cortisol and you're having crashes and you're having loads of coffee. Now this is where adaptogens come in. So the first thing that they can do is they can stop that spike crash phenomenon. Now, they can even that out and elongate the energy cycle from coffee. So a lot of our customers say they used to have 4 or 5 regular coffees in a day, and now they just need 1 or 2 adaptogenic coffees. They're more balanced in their system, they're more focused, they sleep better at night.
It sounded like it could be something that would be good for my mother, so off I trotted to the stall to buy some. But because my mother only drinks 1 cup of coffee a day, she's very particular about getting good coffee. I said to them, you know, you mushroom blend coffee, can you taste the mushrooms? So they said, here, have a sample. So handed me a big cup of it, glugged that back. Yep, tastes like coffee to me. Then after lunch, I thought, well, better get my pipe smoking in before I go. So then in the closing ceremony, I got peckish, and let's just say there is no longer a chocolate bar in my car. And as we were leaving, the cacao stand was shutting down and they were giving away a whole glass of cacao again. So needless to say, I had one. So that's more stimulants in my body than I have ever had in my life. Let's just say I didn't fall asleep driving home. And on Monday, I woke up, my whole body was like, bzzz. I could still feel it. So yeah, we've been normalized to very powerful substances. So I'm actually looking forward, now that, you know, my final pipe smoke of this part of the experiment is over with, I'm actually really looking forward to a week of going back to my baseline of nothing. But anyway, there's no judgment from me on those of you that do enjoy smoking several times a day, or your coffees or whatever. I mean, let's face it, the state of the world right now, it's not surprising people need something to take the edge off. But from a health perspective, I know what is good and what is not good for me. And too many stimulants, I can feel it. I don't want to be doing all of this. So in conclusion, I am not anti-smoking anymore. I would quite happily do this once or twice a month. Do I want to do it more than that? No, I don't. It's powerful stuff, and I'm going to respect that, and I'm going to respect what I know I need for my body. So after my week's break, I will try this stuff, albeit very, very cautiously. And it'll be interesting to see what the pure nicotine, away from all the other alkaloids and whatnot that's in tobacco, what that's like. So the purpose of this YouTube and Substack was really to be promoting my books. And there's a third one on its way. It was never meant to be a health nut channel, but, you know, it is a passion of mine. So if you would like me to do a follow-up video on how I find this stuff and all the research once I properly understand what acetylcholine does and the various nicotine stuff that's in the body. If you would like me to do a follow-up video, I will. But, I'm not a proper biohacker. I don't do things very scientifically. It's just, I'll try this. What does that do? So there are plenty of YouTube channels. They take their bloods and monitor everything. I don't do that. I just dabble. So I'm happy to do the occasional video alongside what I'm meant to be doing, which is the book stuff. So this does give you an insight into just how curious I am and how much trouble I get myself in when that curiosity runs rampant, as, yes, my 3-month solo camper trip round Spain showed. I got myself into a lot of trouble by being curious, and I got myself in even more trouble when I got curious during COVID and started researching a lot. So whilst this book does chart my entire journey through COVID and beyond, and all the accidental activism at the council that I ended up doing, I've been a supporter of green energy and a keen environmentalist since my 20s. My office is solar powered, so I was mortified to discover that a single lithium mine causes millions of tons of waste every year laced with sulfuric acid and radioactive uranium, polluting the water supply for 300 years, not to mention the unacceptable human costs with child labour to mine cobalt. At the end of the book, there's some ideas for the future of how we can change things. And one of those ideas we're putting into practice right now, and that is helping homeschoolers. So those of us with life skills actually volunteering our time to help those people that are trying to homeschool their children, that they want to get them away from the woke brainwashing that's going on in our education system. So that's really going to be the focus for the channel, inspiring people to do things differently. And yes, I guess this does fall into that category, but how much health nerdy stuff do you want? If you would like me to do more of these kind of videos, let me know, because I wasn't actually intending to do any. It's just happened. But anyway, next week I'll be back with an inspiring interview, and then possibly the week after an update on my nicotine experiment, if you'd like. So until next time, happy pipe smoking to those of you that do. Take care.